Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us again this Saturday night for another edition of Raising Vibration Radio and Journey into Consciousness. I'm one of your hosts, Reverend Raven, or everybody calls me Sandy. And Tammy Lucente is not going to be joining us tonight because it's her birthday. So if you guys are listening out there and you just want to type in happy birthday to our other co-host, the founder of Journey into Consciousness, we gladly love you to do that tonight. And I want to thank our special guest being here tonight, Vickie Griffith, who's an author, a coach, a weight loss coach, and a minister. And we're so blessed to have her on the show tonight. Vickie, tell our listeners hello.
Hello, everyone. I am very honored and grateful to be here tonight. So let's have some fun.
Oh, yes, I'm totally about the fun. If anybody knows that listens to us here, we are all about having some fun tonight. So, Vickie, tell a little bit about yourself.
Well, it started back in, no, I'm just kidding. I won't take you all the way back to my birth. But however, it's important to know that I was born chubby. And I was born chubby and I was a chubby toddler. And then about the age of 3, it doesn't become so cute to be chubby. And it kind of haunted me my school age years, teenage years, about middle school, somewhere between elementary school and middle school. That's when I realized I was fat and I went on a national program and got to my goal. And I was super, super thin at that point. And I knew in order to be thin and stay thin, I needed to stay on their maintenance program. Coming from a family that my dad was a factory worker, my mom drove school bus, money wasn't something we had a lot of either. And when I hit my goal weight, my dad said, "Good, you won't have to do that. We don't have to pay for that anymore," which was totally disappointing for me. And then the feelings of unworthiness. But I tried my diet. I tried every diet. I have tried every diet under the sun. I let go of weight. I would gain weight. It was back and forth throughout my entire adult life. And then one day I just got sick and tired. Have you ever had that day where you got sick and tired? You looked at the scale and go, "Really again?"
Yes,
Yeah.
I think we
Yeah.
all have.
Yeah, most of us do. Us women have that moment when we get on the scale and go, "Okay, this is ridiculous. What am I going to do?" And most times in the past, I would have started a new diet, and it would have been a very restricted diet, and I would have been okay on it for a few hours or a couple days or maybe even a few weeks, but I couldn't maintain it because it was so stupid restricted that I would start eating emotionally, binge eating again, and starting the whole cycle of shame and guilt and remorse, going on another restricted diet. And like, I'm stopping this pattern. And I decided to stop dieting. And guess what
What happened for you?
happened? I actually started releasing weight, eating foods I loved and nurtured me at the time, and stopped the judgment, the bullying, and the criticism. So I did go on a diet. That's kind of teasing me through there. I went on a mental diet. However, I didn't change my food. I changed the portions. Still nurtured myself in a really crazy way with fast food every day, but ate smaller portions. And the weight started creeping off because I wasn't beating myself up all the time. And then I went, after releasing 30 some pounds, I kind of went, huh, this is rather interesting. And I've always been interested in hypnosis. I actually was hypnotized again to try to lose weight at 16. And I lost 30 pounds using the word lost because it found me back soon after. Because hypnosis was based on the diet, which at that point was is now known as keto, but not then. And um, the the experience though was really fascinating because being a shy, reserved person, hypnosis helped me change my mindset about myself, and I did things I never would have expected to do. So even remember one of my high school teachers, it was a psychology class actually, and we had to do an oral report. And so I was like one of the last ones, which everyone dreads being, the report, and even did the report and sat down. And then there was feedback and questions afterwards. And he said, I would have never expected you to be able to do that. How did you do that? Well, the talk was on hypnosis. I said, that's what I did. I used hypnosis to help myself get over my nerves and to stand up in front of this class. So that's been a part of what I do, as well as changing my mindset, knowing that it was what's going up on in my head that was causing the eating disorders, not the food.
That is awesome. So when you lost the weight and you controlled your mind or what you were producing in your mind, your thoughts, it, that gave you confidence to do other things as well.
Right. That's really what is very fascinating about weight is really a symptom. People come to me as if it's a problem. It's really a symptom that something else is going on in their lives. And there's a deep connection between weight and money. There's a deep connection between weight and relationships, relationship with ourselves, relationship with people that we want to love or have love in our lives. There's a huge relationship around our feelings of ourselves, worthiness, value, confidence. So, what was happening is those things were changing. I increased my confidence and my self esteem. I started taking risks that I would have never have done when I got to college. I would take assertiveness classes and any psychology class having to do with had just a little bit about hypnosis. I would actually do the stuff that we are supposed to do: stand up in class, write papers. I never thought I was good at any of that, but yet I did it through that little piece of me that was awakening from the self hypnosis and the hypnosis that I was using. And so that affected my life. And then when my life started becoming affected, then I could start making other decisions. There was a gap between college and becoming a certified hypnotist. There was a gap between, actually, there was a pregnancy. So I got pregnant, became, I was the heaviest I'd ever been in my life. The moment I stepped on the scale at the hospital after giving birth to almost a 10-pound baby, and I was
Oh,
the heaviest I ever had been, I know. And I'm thinking, I should have lost 60 pounds. I just gave birth to this huge baby. That's
no.
not how it worked.
Oh,
That's not.
no. That's
So
a terrifying feeling, isn't it? When you give birth and you look at the scale and you go, oh no.
I know, I know. And I was so sick the first, 2 trimesters, so that I wasn't hardly eating anything. So in the last trimester, I was eating like a fiend and gained about 75 pounds. So the whole experience of my life kind of has led me to do what I do now, which is help other women realize that, one, if they're having some weight issues, they're not broken. There's nothing wrong with them. They're not. They feel like they're out of control of food, or sometimes it's alcohol. That's the same. Comes from the
Right.
same place. Um, a lot of my clients will say, I drink one glass and all of a sudden I'm drinking three or four, or where did that, how to empty that bottle type of thing. Or they're going to say, I started with one cookie and I finished off the whole sleeve. So that's the same issue, just a different substance. And it's through changing your mind, your mindset, your thoughts, your belief system. And it sounds so hard. But the reality is, if you know a few things like self hypnosis, tapping, emotional freedom technique, my two go to other energy techniques, it can be so crazy subtle that you don't even know you've changed.
That is awesome. So, does it matter why we think the way we think about our weight, or is that just like a byproduct and it's just up to us just to let that thought pattern go away? Do we need to like go deep down? My question is, do we have to really go deep down inside ourselves to figure out what caused it, or does it really matter what caused the issue in the first place?
So the answer is yes, and. So I'm not about forcing anyone into anything that's intense. And some theories of change are that you have to get down deep and, drag up all that stuff out of the mud again. I have seen it where you don't have to. Now, there's sometimes it happens, and there's sometimes we're dealing with aspects around that show up, a feeling, a thought that might not have been addressed before. And so, yes, and we can start with the very, very lowest intensity as possible. Sometimes we're just talking about how intense it is. People haven't even told me the story. It's that intense. They'll say, if I start, I just will start crying and never stop crying. And I'm like, well, has that ever happened before? They're like, no. I'm like, well, it probably won't happen now, but that's okay. Let's start there. And then when we start there, we can start diffusing the emotion that they're afraid they're going to have. And once we diffuse the emotion they're afraid they're going to have, they're more open to be able to explore. And that's really what we're doing. We're just exploring what they think this may have come from. Now, in years of practice, I'll have many clients come into me, and we always blame everything on our mom, right? Everybody, everyone
Yeah, we
blames
do.
things on their mom. And so they'll come to me and they're like, it's my mom's fault. And as we start diffusing the emotion around it, they found out they really had a problem with their dad, the person that they felt was, their protector, the one that they felt was uh, so loving to them, and may have been. But one of the examples is the client was sharing how she started recalling, as we're diffusing some of the other emotions that and dissolving them, that her dad, the person she absolutely admired, love of her life, he just thought she was the most adorable thing, but yet he was verbally abusive to her mom. And so that was really what was causing some of the issues that she was trying to resolve.
Wow. That is wild. And so did she got in touch with those feelings for herself and was able to release them?
Yes. Yes. Sometimes it's the hard part is the fear of looking at it, but once you look at it, it makes it so much easier to let it go and move on. Sometimes the belief systems are so ingrained that it takes a while. We have to be patient because the mind and the brain's entire job is to keep you safe. That's it. The brain has a little gland in the back of your skull. It's called the amygdala gland, and its entire job is to search for danger, and that it does it quite well. So the brain's first response is any situation, is there danger here? That comes from on our DNA. That's how we survived as a species. We walked outside and looked, is there a tiger nearby? Is there something that's going to hurt me?
Right.
And then we discern from there what to do next. It's still working that way for us now. Although there's not a lot of physical danger to us now, there is some, but there's not a lot of physical danger. The danger now is I'm getting really stressed at work. And the reaction from the amygdala gland is sending blood to your extremities to fight or to run. Well, especially with COVID, stuck at home, stressed out, trying to work from home, trying to get the schools homeschooled, trying to be around people that we are not normally around for many hours of the day.
Right.
And the brain's going, this is dangerous, but we didn't know what to fight because it varied from day to day. So we couldn't fight it and we couldn't run because we were told to stay home.
Right.
So it's not surprising that people have gained about 29 pounds through all of this. So the brain does that. That's its job. And the mind is doing the same thing, and it's creating experiences, or from your experiences, can creating conclusions from those experiences, and then trying to protect you from the same hurt happening. And so it's doing the same thing for your best interest, misguided as it is.
Yes.
Eating a cheesecake when we're stressed is not really protecting us. The subconscious mind says, this is emotional overload. Let's go eat a cheesecake. Yay, I'm in.
Yeah. Yep. I'm in for that one. Yes. Why is it that we want to eat when we're stressed out, though? Is it because when we were kids or something, our parents gave us food if we fell or something? Is it something psychological like that? Or is it ingrained in all of us? I don't understand, where that came from. Why do you want to eat when you're stressed out?
Well, that's could be part of it. So it could be environmentally habit that was formed through rituals that, like you said, you skin your knee and you go get a lollipop. I don't know about you, but I remember when I'd go to the dentist and you'd open up the toy chest at the end and it'd have candy and little prizes in it. And so there was a reward for being a good little girl or boy. That experience too. So the brain is associating sweets with reward. So I'm stressed. I'm going to try to reward myself. There's the feeling of deprivation that occurs that we use when we are deprived in stress, which is what's happening. We're deprived of something. We're feeling we're deprived of something, whether it's hugs, whether it's well-meaning attention, whether it's a deprivation of just sharing who we are or being able to ask for what we need. And then the stress leads to, in the past, getting something to eat. We learn at a very young age a coping mechanism, sometimes several. My coping mechanism was food, even at a young age. I was the number one salesperson in Girl Scouts selling Girl Scout cookies because I bought most of them and put them under my bed. That's just seriously, that's how I coped with life. And we didn't show emotions in our house growing up, so that's how I coped with emotions. So it is a environmental response to learning how to make ourselves feel better, and the food is the number one way to do that. And research has shown sugar does create a chemical reaction in your body that does make you feel good for a while. Chocolate does the same thing. Then we got better and better at researching how certain types of foods affect our moods and our craving mechanism and actually affect our brain. And so they discovered that salt, sugar, and fat, all of those alone will send receptors in the brain into this feel good spot. But put them all together,
Ugh,
oh my
a
goodness.
drug, right? It's a
It
drug.
is. It is. And so there's part of that going on too. So from trying to learn to cope on our own as a child, getting into the processed foods and the sugars, and then having that chemical reaction in our brain that only wants more of that because it makes us feel good. And I just learned recently that the body adapts very quickly to it, and so does the brain. So, just like any other drug, you want more because you need more to feel better.
Yes.
And so then it becomes this downward spiral. So, there's a little bit about of all of those things that you said, and, and learned response, learned behaviors, learned habits, and the chemical reactions in our body.
Wow. Mind blowing. But I kind of had my sneaky suspicion that it stems from childhood, which when you said we like to blame our parents for, uh, but again, too, even after a certain age, you got to become responsible, for what you do and how you react. Even children need to learn that. Now, I don't know what age that should be, but I know at some point we all have to take responsibility for every action that occurs to us, right?
Mhm. I absolutely agree. There's a whole lot of personal responsibility and a whole lot of decision making. Any change starts with a decision. You decide you're going to change, you're not going to change, and then a whole lot of decisions come from that. So absolutely, it does come from some of this does come from childhood. Another client of mine came to me because her 3 in the afternoon snack break from stress was causing her weight gain. Some people can really pinpoint what's the one habit that, because usually it is one habit or time of day or circumstance that creates people to overeat. And for her, it was 3 o'clock in the afternoon. Not only was she feeling a little tired, but she was at that point her stress had leveled up, and she would find herself perusing the office for chocolate. or she'd go to the candy bar. You go get a candy bar from the vending machine. And she's like, I need to break this habit, but I just can't seem to break it. I don't understand I can try to talk myself out of it. I can try to avoid it. I can make myself go walk up and down the stairs, but I can't stop thinking about it. So I'm like obsessed until I have this candy at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. Once I have some, I can settle down again and get through my day. And so we were chatting, and I was asking, one of the questions I ask is, what did your mom always say? And she's like, oh, no, I don't remember, mom. And it's more of a, just kind of a generalized question. It may be a pattern of thought, or a feeling that you got from your mom. And what'd your dad always say? Well, we had our session and she left. And on my way home, I get a voicemail from her, and I listen to it when I get home, and she's cracking up. She's just absolutely beside herself. And she goes, I had to pull over in my car and call you to let you know what I just realized. She said, when I was a child, my mom would tuck us all in, and she would sit at the edge of my bed and sing, Mama's little baby loves chocolate, chocolate. Mama's little baby loves chocolate too. And she said, from that experience of the coziness, of the love that her mom was showing to her, when
Right.
she got stressed, chocolate was what she wanted to bring back that feeling of love. So food cravings come from either trying to push something away, like stress or uneasiness, feeling uncomfortable, or trying to pull something in that you once experienced. And for her, it was that song related to chocolate, that when she got stressed, she was trying to pull in that love and comfort in her day that she was missing.
Yes, I can see that. And while you were talking about that, I was thinking about funerals. You know how people always bring a bunch of food to, it's everybody uses food to comfort somebody.
Right.
Or when you have a life-changing event of any, there's always some type of food involved. And that can play a big part in somebody's psyche, right?
Well, it's part of our culture, and I really don't want that to change. I love having barbecues on Father's Day and having the potato salad and all the things that come with barbecuing outside, and the cake and all that. I don't want that to change. I think that's a lovely experience for my granddaughters to experience. Weddings, the same thing. Food is celebration. Food is delicious,
Right.
and it should be. And we should celebrate it and enjoy it and savor it and spend our time with it, because it is loving to us. There is a form of love, like you said, celebration or sadness. We're trying to help someone feel better, and you do that through food. So it's not a tradition that I think we need to abolish. I think we just need to understand that those moments in time are not a reason to decide, as a person who wants to lose weight, that, oh, I've blown it. I've just blown it. So, the party's on Saturday night. I'll just eat the rest of the weekend and start again on Monday. Or start feeling bad. I shouldn't have eaten that cake. God darn it, I shouldn't have eaten that piece of cake. Well, yes, you should have. Unless you have food allergies around it, yeah, have a piece of cake.
Right.
Enjoy it. Give yourself permission, and then move on back to your, what I call, normal routine in your food program. So yes, we should celebrate food and life, and it's just it's gotten, especially during COVID, it got kind of obsessive. When you walk in a grocery store and there's no flour or sugar anywhere because everyone's baking.
Right.
That was, and that's what they were doing. They're trying to make themselves feel better. So they were baking bread, and they were baking cakes and pastries and all kinds of things.
Oh yeah, too. And here's another thing. At the beginning of COVID, like when you went to the grocery store, like there was a shortage of everything, right? And so that flight or flight thing came from the brain again, going, oh my God, I got to grab any kind of food I can because I don't know if there's going to be any more in the store. And you store it away, and that's what you have to eat. And it could have been crap food that you got in the first place that you normally wouldn't have bought because of the fear of there's not going to be any more food in the store.
Yes, and that isn't just a fear of food. That's a fear of not. So that's actually a belief system that there's not enough. And I bet you that belief system is obviously it was for majority of the people. There's not enough food. There's not enough money. There's not enough food for me. Even when you're on a diet, right? There's not enough food because you're on a restrictive, usually very restrictive diet.
Right.
There's not enough time. I'm not enough. I'm not smart enough. I'm not valuable enough. I'm too old. I'm too young. That's not enough. So that is a good indication that many, I would say probably close to 75% or 80% of the population has a belief system that they're not enough when they start doing that. And just here in Florida, and you may have experienced this too, although further south it wasn't as bad with the pipeline, the delivery of gas. People were filling up gas in stupid containers that are flammable and was causing like 8 cars caught fire because they had gas in containers that weren't approved for gasoline. And that's a shame that fear drove them to that place.
Oh no. Yeah, we had a shortage here in Pinellas County for a day. And then the news came out that the pipeline was coming back on, but yes, there was that fear driven all of a sudden panic, and it's all, I think, since I think it stems back from the hurricane, that we had Irma a few years back when you couldn't get any water or anything in the store because everything was shut down. So that's been a really, I think it was back in 2017 or 18. Yeah, so it's been a reality for a lot of people around here. So when they hear some bad news, they just automatically, boom, let's go to the store and let's pile up or get the gas or get the ice or get whatever we need to survive because they don't know, what's going to happen.
Right, right, right. And is it wise to prepare? We're getting in a whole different subject. I think that it is, especially Floridians anywhere on the East Coast where we have hurricanes. Even in Virginia, we had hurricanes, and so is it good for you to have some extra bottles of water around? Sure. And to have, a few of the necessities that you need. I think that's just wise. I was a Girl Scout after all. We always came prepared, just like Boy Scouts. So I think that's wise. But the hoarding piece is what was I guess what's bothering me is the whole needing more than everyone else. And that's what I found a little disturbing about what people are looking for, that in that whole not enough core belief system.
What's another belief system that causes people to stay on their current journey that they're on with their weight or their life?
That's a great question. Thank you. Actually, they're in my book. So I put there are 4 core belief systems that come up in my practice. I've noticed this, and I can funnel any excuse. I call them solid reasons in my book. Any excuse that you give me, and I can funnel it into a core belief. So you won't have all 4 of these. So, right? Although I play with 3, but then I'm an overachiever, so you don't have to even play with 3. I don't play with 3 all the time, all right? So I'm not overdoing it. But I do have one core belief system that keeps coming up and showing up. And I believe from a spiritual point of view that we kind of choose one. Our soul chooses one when we come to this planet and this plane so that we can play. It doesn't feel like play, but so we can play and learn what that experience is like. So the first one I mentioned, and that's not enough. So you don't feel like there is enough of anything, not enough time, not enough That's what I seem to play with a lot is I don't have enough time in my day. And I'm like, wait a minute, I'm making that up because Einstein proved that isn't even true. So, there's science behind some of this stuff too. It's like, wait a minute, this is a really false belief, but yet it's so ingrained in my core that there's not enough time. Like I said, not enough food, especially if you're a chronic dieter. Not enough yummy food if you're a chronic dieter. Not I'm not enough. So being fat, I'm not enough in some way. The next one, and this is not in any order, so the next one is disloyal or abandoned. So if you change, you're disloyal to someone. In weight loss, what I see this as is my mom and I were just talking about this the other day. My mom and I, she was thin when I was young, and then she started having weight issues. And so she and I were on diets a lot together, and we joined a gym together and we would go to the gym and then go to Howard Johnson's and have hot fudge sundaes afterwards. So we were kind of like eating buddies. And there was this unspoken feeling for me, and I'm not quite sure for her, but I think so as well, is that if one of us lost weight, then that would leave the other one behind, would be disloyal to them. I see this often with friends. So, especially people who are extremely obese tend to hang around people, and that's where all of us we tend to hang around people like ourselves because it's
Hmm.
comfortable. So they tend to hang around other obese people, and so if they start becoming thin, then what are they're going to be disloyal to their friends, and then that leads to abandonment. So if I'm disloyal to my friends, will they leave me, or will I have to leave them? Same thing in married couples. Will I have will they abandon me? Will they leave me because they're thinner, and so then that person starts sabotaging the relationship. I had a client who came to me. She released 50 pounds. She sent her husband. Now I make sure that that is an agreement he's ready for, not because she thinks it's time for him to lose weight. And he was really willing. He was ready. He wanted to make a difference, and he came in. This is when I was actually seeing people in my office, and I haven't done that way before this whole work from home stuff happened. But he came into my office and he was livid, and I didn't know that this man could be. He was such a gentle giant, but he was livid, and I'm like, "What's happened?" And I'm thinking something horrible's happened. And he's like, "She did it. I can't believe she did it. I just can't believe she did it." I'm like, "She did what?" And she brought home cinnamon rolls, which is my favorite from my favorite bakery, and left them on the counter. The counter. It's an island. I have to walk around this island just to get my breakfast. What was he was just going on and on. What was she thinking? Why would she do that to me? Well, even though she'd released 50 pounds, something deep inside of her, not malicious, felt uncomfortable with him letting go of the weight, that he might abandon her in some way. So that's how the abandonment stuff works. So it could have anything to do with building a business. It could have anything to do with starting a new hobby. You might feel that you start a new hobby and you're disloyal to the people because you're not hanging out on the couch anymore watching TV, or they might abandon you if you. So that's what disloyal and abandon is. This other one I don't see very often is the fear of standing out, and that one holds people back. So for my clients who are weight loss clients, they are saying things. Well, if I get thin, then I will be seen again, and usually about 85% of them have had some kind of inappropriate sexual advance at a time in their life when they were thin. So the weight is protection, and they're afraid of being seen, so standing out as a thin person. I also see this in communities like Starving Artists, where I have a client who is starting to get noticed and starting to get jobs and being commissioned, and that being that that being seen is uncomfortable because then there's the disloyal. So the kind of disloyal and abandon come into play together. And then there's burden and responsibility. So my weight loss clients, it's too hard. I have to do all the planning. I have to cut up all the vegetables. It's just too much burden. It's just too hard. Or it's too much responsibility. So I'm responsible for everyone else in my household. And if I go on a diet, they're going to have to eat similar to what I eat. And that's just way too much. It doesn't want to, I don't want that responsibility on my shoulders. So there's that kind of thing going on. I had a client who was a gym owner, brand new gym. Anytime you open a new business, it does take a lot of hours, 12 to 14-hour days. And because of that, he was doing the same thing we all do, right? He's grabbing stuff to go the best he could, healthiest he could, but it still was adding a few pounds on his body. And he wanted to start working out regularly for his body. The working out part he could fix. You just come into the gym earlier or leave later or find some time when you're slow and work out. You could fix that. But the food part included some planning and preparing. And his wife was at home with 3 kids under 5, and he didn't want to be a burden. He didn't want to even ask because he thought it would be a burden to her to ask for her support to help him prepare his food. What actually happened was the reverse of his fear. So he asked, and she was very grateful and honored to help him prepare for his food because she noticed that he was putting on weight and also noticed how it was bothering him. So those are the 4 belief systems that people get bump up against, especially when they want to change anything in their lives. Doesn't matter if you want to build a relationship closer to God. It doesn't matter if you want to have an amazing relationship or have someone special come into your life, whether it's money, whether it's your career, or whether it has anything to do with your health. You will bump into at least one of those 4 core belief systems. That is what's holding you back. The excuses is what you'll say to yourself because you might not know what that core belief system is. So the solid reasons that you keep creating over and over and over again to justify the belief, and then you create stories around it. And what's really fascinating about creating stories, I mean, I've had entire conversations in my head with people that I never had. Thank God. So I made up those stories, and I was making up those stories about our conversation to create excuses for myself to back up a core belief system. And what's fascinating about stories when I was doing research for my book is this last book is that our brain actually makes up 80% of our stories. That just blew me away.
Wow.
80% of, I know.
Oh,
80% is not even true. It's
no,
made.
it's made up, right? That's crazy.
Oh my gosh.
That is wild. So 80% of us is not real.
Yeah.
Only 20% of us is truth, and the rest is all fiction.
Made up by our brain because that's what it does.
Is that a safety thing?
Yes, and it's because our brains are problem solvers. So
Ah,
if there's a gap, it's going to fill it in. And
wow.
my brother was just telling us this story. He was on the grand jury in the state that he lives in, and the prosecuting attorneys were helping them understand that why is it that we have 3 people that saw one thing in this accident and 2 that saw this other thing, and one of those 2 was an off-duty police officer. And the police officer and this one person, they absolutely swore they saw it differently than the other 3. And why is that? And they said that's what they said is that the brain fills in the stories, especially when something is happening quickly, which it always is, and then you stop and try to relive it. The brain has already collected the data or made the data up, basically. And so that's why both of them believe they're absolutely right. But 2 of them were wrong through the videotapes that they collected. And they still, even looking at the videotapes, no, I am sure that it happened
Wow.
that way. Yeah.
Wow. So you really shouldn't believe yourself, right?
Wow, that's tough.
I know,
Really.
right? It really is. It's like you really shouldn't believe yourself because what's the truth here? And and it's really amazing. Too, you talk about beliefs, but if we let go of all beliefs, wouldn't we just be manifesting everything we want in our life if we can let go of beliefs?
Wouldn't that be something?
Right? But how do you let go of the beliefs?
Well, like I said, I do believe that if you want to call it the soul, picked at least one of them to play with in your, so you can better understand how the manifestation happens and what's getting in your way, and to actually celebrate that because it's a new and deeper level of understanding. It's not easy, and it kind of pretty much sucks. I mean, it really does. To go, oh, here I go again. Look at that, yay! Um, However, there's a whole thing about contrast, and that's what that's showing you is contrast and how you have the ability to move past it. So it's showing you some delightful thing that you can play with to move beyond, and showing you that you actually have the power to manifest what you want differently rather than what you're experiencing. So
Right.
there's a lot of spirituality involved with that as well.
And so awareness really is seeking the truth within our own mind.
Yes. And it's not easy to do it on your own.
No, it is not. It is not. That's why people need the support. In fact, I really think people do need that extra, that life coach or that one go-to person that's going to always tell you the truth, not what you want to hear. They're great to have those people in your life that'll tell you what you want to hear, but that's not what you really want to need when you're seeking out the truth in our minds.
And you are so right. And then again, we don't like hearing that.
No, we don't. I don't like hearing it. I can't believe that just came out of my mouth, but it did.
Yeah, we really don't want to hear it. But I also know that that's for my best and highest interest is to have somebody, like you said, who is going to kick me in the butt, someone who's going to also cheer me on when things are going well, someone who can be beside me when I'm going through really difficult times and with a hand up, but also there's times when I know I just need somebody to say, okay, stop whimpering. You're okay, and let's move forward. Take my hand and let's go. And I'm like, all right, let's go, or go do that. Even though you don't want to, go do it anyway. So yeah, there's those times as well that we need somebody, but we also need a cheerleader because of what I was just sharing about earlier is how the brain functions. Is always look for danger. We can train our brain to look for positive. And that's why you're hearing a lot of this. It's very interesting. Neuroscience, metaphysics, spirituality are kind of all coming together right now.
Hmm.
And so you'll hear someone in spirituality say, be grateful, write a gratitude list, do it every day, be in that gratitude spot. Neuroscience, that's a really good reason because the brain is programmed to look for negative. So now you're working into your higher brain by gratitude. And then the metaphysics side of that is you're actually changing them. And your neuroscience is you're changing your brain chemistry when you do that. So it's just fascinating how science and spirituality and all this woo-woo stuff that I know I say, I suspect you say,
Oh, yeah.
too, has science back behind it. And the brain actually does chemically change when you have a gratitude list every day. And that's what we want as higher evolving human beings is to help our brain get out of, some people call it the lizard brain, some call it other things, that meaning that it's never really changed. Well, we have the opportunity to change it through some of these positive aspects.
I got you. That makes a lot of sense right there. What is a typical day look for you though? Like, the practicing you practice gratitude on a daily basis, but what does your day look like for you when you get up? What do you do for yourself?
Well, I actually live my average perfect day. And some days aren't as perfect as others, but I actually live it every single day. So I get up in the morning, usually around 5, 5:30, maybe 6 at the latest. Get the dogs out, get the coffee brewing, and get them breakfast because I get a little unruly if they don't get breakfast.
Understand.
And then I'll get my breakfast. Usually I'll read. So I have a book, the side of the sofa, I'll read something. I'm always, in the morning, we have Hallmark Channel on because it has Reba and Golden Girls, which is really fun TV and it makes us laugh. So that's going on. Then I will check my emails, what's going on for the day. And so by the time I get to my desk, I've already gone through my emails once. I see where I need to go for the day, and I go up and start getting ready for my day. While I'm listening to Earl Nightingale, The Strangest Secret, and usually one of Abraham Hicks videos or Jake Ducey, and sometimes Mike Dooley. So those are my favorite things to listen to. So I'm listening to uplifting, positive information that I can take into my day. I get to my desk, and my desk is, then I'm either working with my clients, I am preparing for speeches, I am reaching out to people who have interest in some of my work. I am looking for speeches. I do a lot of talking to people, whether I'm
Hmm.
looking for speeches, podcast, talk to Facebook groups, radio shows like this. I do networking, so I go to networking meetings, whether they're virtual or in person, and usually lunchtime. Lately, it hasn't been this way because my husband's been very busy. He works out of our home too. So usually at lunchtime around 11:45, we sit down and turn on The Price is Right and have a competition on who can get closest to the showcase.
How fun.
Yeah, well, it is, and we've done this for years. But like I said, the last few weeks we've both been so busy we haven't. Our lunchtime hasn't synced. Take the dogs for a walk. Um, Feed them something because they eat 3 times a day or more, and then go back to my desk. And I know my calendar is completely full, and I have some amazing conversations with people, and have or I'm creating something. So I do have a 1 day event coming up in June that I just decided that's what I'm going to do. So now it's all the creative back end stuff, which I'll enjoy doing this week. And usually around 5:36, my day is ending. Somewhere along there I've had a break, and usually again it's outside with the dogs, had maybe a healthy snack. Dinner time is again it's the two of us with dinner. I'm not a very fancy cook, so you don't see that here in the house, but we have nutritious food. We're both pretty low carb, and then we watch something together. My husband and I sit and watch something on television, or if it's a weekend, we're usually out and about. So get ready for bed. I do some yoga. I read really light headlines in the news,
Uh-huh.
so I kind of know what's going on. And then I sleep well between 7 and 8 hours. So that's my perfect day, and that wasn't 5 years ago. So I've worked towards getting that day, and I feel very fortunate to be able to live it.
Well, that is a beautiful day. When do you have time to write the book?
Well, that was really interesting because I was in a program, and that was one of the things that we were to do, and I was so busy, so busy, so busy, and then we had some time scheduled for vacation, and COVID hit, and we didn't go. So that entire week, I had like the first 3 chapters written, but that entire week I wrote the rest of the book, and it's a short book. You could read it in an hour, hour and a half. So, and then I had a couple extra tweaks to do after that week. So that's how I wrote my book. Prior to that week off, though, I was scheduling it it would put in my schedule. So nothing gets done for me unless it's in my schedule, including personal time. So I would take time to read, because it's very important to read to write a book. So I take time to read in the morning, as I always did. And then I might take from 8 to 9 o'clock to write. And there was no judgment about what I was writing. And that's what's important with anything we want to change in our life. There was no judgment. I heard another hypnotist once say, and he's written like 12 books, and he does all kinds of research, and he's just a very busy man. It's like, how do you have time? And he creates programs and all kinds of stuff. How do you have time to do this? And he said, well, this was my goal. My goal was to type one sentence of my book every night. Now, he lived an hour away from his office. He worked 10-hour days. So he's away for 12 hours, gets home, gets really tired, and he goes, and some days I open up my laptop, I type in, this is a sentence, and shut it down. He achieved his goal. And so I kept that in mind. It didn't matter what I wrote. It didn't matter if I kept it for the book or not. What mattered is getting into that mind space of this is the time that I write and being consistent.
Did you always want to be a writer when you were younger? Did you just fall into it? What was the motivation behind you becoming an author?
I would so love to say yes, but it never dawned on me. I am spelling challenged. I learned this in the 5th grade when I was the second one to sit down in the spelling bee because I got the word wrong. And I was so embarrassed. So embarrassed. And so the whole thing about not taking enough time to prepare and all the judgment around that and the criticism around that, and I'm a horrible speller. So that belief system has stayed with me. And then Word came along with spell checker. I'm like, yay! And then I would still get the wrong word. So writing to me was a challenge. And then when I was studying to become a minister, we had to write a thesis. And I figure if I'm going to write a thesis, I'm going to write it in a book format. And fortunately, that was okay with the form of study I was doing. And so I wrote it much more casual than a thesis would be. It had all the citations and everything that it needed, but it was just much more casual. And that's how I got my minister's license. So they approved it, and I took 3 years. I held it for 3 years before I published it, and I gave it to a friend who's since passed. I said, will you please read this for me? I don't know if this book is about me, and I don't know if it's going to help anybody, and I don't want to publish it if it's just about me and not going to help anybody. So 2 weeks later, we're having coffee, and she said, you have to publish this book. She would go into the prisons, and she had a women's group that she would go, like a Bible study, and they would talk about things and read books. And she said, I read your first chapter to this group, and they were laughing and they were crying, and they got all kinds of ahas and breakthroughs from it. You have to publish this book. So I gave it to another friend who had already published my books, and she said, you can't publish this book. She goes, it needs more. It needs more about the reader. So how can you help from your story? How can you help the reader? What's the moral of the story in each chapter? And so in a period of 6 weeks between, it was Thanksgiving and New Year's, I finished all of that in that book and got someone to design the cover and scared the snot out of me. I mean, I'm a person who's very withdrawn. I'm highly sensitive. I didn't know that until a few years ago. Would have been considered shy, and then all of a sudden I'm writing a book and I'm putting it out there, and it's about my life. It's like, oh my God, what's wrong with me? And I remember putting it on Amazon, going, oh boy, here we go. And that's how that one happened. Then I wrote a couple chapters. I started writing articles, and then the second book, like I said, was part of a program I was in. And I had a deadline and I had to get it done. So it was never a calling to be an author. It was kind of a side effect of the work that I do.
That is amazing. So what was the name of the first book you've ever written?
The first book is called Stuck Up. And I don't know if they can actually see the video on Facebook or not. You just
Yeah, you can show it. You can show your picture. Turn it right there. That's
Here it
perfect.
is. So it's Stucked Up, A Breakthrough Path to Unstuck. That was my first book. This is the one that I wrote as a thesis. And then it's got questions in it for you to discern if it's something about you that you need to learn more about. And then this is my latest book. This just came out in October. You can be right about everything and still have nothing. How to give up your need to be right and get what you want.
Oh, that is such a hard one for everyone, right? Like my son, who's 26 years old, likes to be right on everything with me. So I definitely need to read that book because I want to be right with him, you know? It's like there's just two forces between each other, wanting to be right with each other, but you don't gain anything from being like that at all.
Oh, no. And actually, the whole book premise came from a situation that happened with a girlfriend of mine. And she was actually willing to die. She was
Oh,
willing to die to prove she was right. And then I started thinking, wow, what belief systems do we have that we're fighting so desperately for to keep that are so wrong, but we're willing to die for them? Because that's what we're doing. We're trying to prove those core belief systems are right. All that misguided information the brain made up. We're trying to, all the stories, we're creating solid reasons why it should be right. And then we are creating habits and actions to prove that they're right. And in some cases with our health, you really are willing to die to prove they're right.
yeah. Yes, I've witnessed that through my whole life. Yes, that is very true. So, at the I after the show, I will be posting your website. They can purchase your book through your website, right?
Yes, of course.
And on, of course, Amazon as well.
Yes.
And I'll also give you a link to a couple of to Vickie's YouTube channel because I was watching a earlier and I've learned so much. Like um, you talk about why do people get off of their weight loss plan? You know, that was very interesting to learn. And why don't diets really work?
Mhm.
You know, so I'm going to give all these links to them and stuff like that.
Thank
Yes, but it's my pleasure because I mean, you have such this glowing personality. It's hard to believe that you're shy. I find that very difficult because here you are on me. I'm not on camera, but you are. I made a long time ago when I started doing podcast that I would never be on the internet. I'll be a voice on the internet, but you'll never see my picture on the internet. But that's just me. Tammy, she gets on here all the time, but I find it really hard to believe that you're shy because here you are and it's amazing and you're living a good life. You got this glow about you, this energy that you know that says, hey, I'm living, I'm doing things, I'm happy. You can tell that from, you know, just from your presence, just from your vibration of your voice alone. I know that things are going right for you in your life and moving forward, and that's a really beautiful thing. And I think that's where I connected. I listened to you on ions uh presentation you did a couple of months back in Richmond, Virginia, on a podcast. So that was beautiful, and I just like I got to have this lady on the show because your energy is just amazing.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. And I am very grateful for the invite. So thanks again so much for having me on. Thanks for everybody that's listening. We're going to listen later. And I would appreciate reaching out to me. So if you have questions, comments, like, Vickie, you're full of it. Nah, I'm okay.
Yeah, and we still have about 30 more minutes. We run the show for till 9:30, but I just wanted to, you know, to let people know that they're going to have connection to you and stuff like that. Um, what are in the second book that you just finished? What are some other highlights in there that we can gain from reading this book? What would help? It's not about weight loss, obviously. It's about just personal life, right?
It is about personal life. And a lot of times, what we do, as I said, we support our belief systems through these solid reasons to prove that they're right, the brain making up stories, but then we start going into the what if scenario. And the what if scenario can work out in two different ways. So you can use the what if to go down a rabbit hole of all the negative things that could happen if you change or if you go about doing whatever it is that you want out of your life. So you go down that what if rabbit hole, and pretty soon you've convinced yourself it's not worth moving forward. You make a decision that it's too scary, it's too hard, it's, whatever it may be. It's just not. The what if is too much for you to even consider doing, and so you don't do anything. Or you can use a what if to create a story, because what's fascinating about the mind is it doesn't know the difference between what's real and what you make up. The brain's making up the story, the mind believes it, and it's creating the habits to perform to show that that belief is true. So the what if can be about what you want your day to look like. I started out my perfect day by writing it out. And then it started becoming true little by little. It didn't change overnight. So you can use the what if, even, and this is going to sound really weird, even to change events, the feelings around events that you've had in your life that didn't turn out well or didn't go well for you. And you're probably thinking, well, why and how could I do that? It happened, and that's the facts, that's the reality. True. But you can change how you feel about it, maybe not necessarily the what actually happened, the facts around it. And when you change how you feel around it, then other changes can happen for you. And so the what if to change the story to how you reacted to it, how you are reacting to it now, can change your entire life. I've seen this happen for myself. My clients do it quite often. So, what that would look like is you would write 10 sentences, but not anymore. Maximum 10 sentences of what the experience was for you. And then you write 10 sentences of what you would have liked it to be. So, it could have been I had an argument with my mother at 10 years old about going to a special school that we couldn't afford. And because of that, and it wasn't even that we couldn't afford it, it was her tone and her way she looked down upon me that made me feel like I wasn't smart enough to go to this school, rather than we really couldn't afford it. And so my whole life I've been battling with this feeling that I'm not smart enough to do some of the things that I would like to do to fulfill my career or to fulfill a relationship. So then you would change that 10 sentences to my mother and I had this argument, and she made me feel like I wasn't smart enough. But I instead realized that I was brilliant, and I always have been. And I love the subjects of math and algebra, and I'm making this up, right? So English, whatever it is, and art, and that it's it's enhancing my life right now, as I love to go to museums or I'm easily able to solve math problems. So you can change the what if in a positive way. And you can also look at the positive side of a decision. So let's say you're thinking about moving. And you can go down the what if rabbit hole of, well, it's going to be a lot of work. So if we do this, it's going to be a lot of work. I got to pack up all this stuff, and what am I going to do with it all? And got to make this house look like it's not lived in, even though we live in. I've got two dogs, and what if they don't like it? Or what if the dog pees on something that smells like pee? And what if they're what if? Or you could go, well, what if it's kind of fun for us to start packing up some of these things, and discovering that there's some things we don't need anymore, and donating it to somebody who does. What if we discover that we've had a rare diamond this entire time? Yeah. So make it fun. What if this place that we're moving into is the place we've always dreamed of? So you can change that opportunity to decide differently through your what ifs.
I got you. So, um, What do you think about people that get into a contentment type of lifestyle? They're content with what their life is, and I think that's the best it's going to be.
That's an interesting question. And it, I wonder if they really are. As a human species, we are always evolving.
Hmm.
So I wonder what their self battles are sometimes to stay in that place. Or, are they content or are they afraid? And there are, I'm sure there are plenty of people who are content with their lives, and they are what they are, and they're just willing to be that place. We used to see that more, I think, generations ago than
Hmm.
now, because there's so much, we're exposed to so much information to see that life could be different in other ways. It does surprise me sometimes. I grew up in a small town, and it does surprise me that people stayed in that small town. The people that I grew up with stayed in that small town. I've seen so much of the world, I can't imagine not having that life. But they are content, or have they settled? That's a whole different mindset. Have they settled for what they have? They settled for what they believe they can have. Have they settled that they can't do anything different because that's what their parents did, or that's what their grandparents did? Can you be content with settling? I suppose so. Um, but it's hard for me. It's hard for me to imagine coming from. I came from that same place they did, a real small town, lower middle income. Sometimes my father was on leave 6 weeks out of the year. We grew a garden, so we had food. Um, so there was times we didn't. He was laid off, and we didn't have presents for Christmas. I would have never known that. I guess my aunts and uncles bought some for us, um, but there was something in myself and my brother, and even our parents, that kept believing there was something different,
Hmm.
and so they choose never to settle. And I think because of their belief that they weren't going to settle for contentment, then we were open to opportunities that we might not have seen if our parents were different. So environmental has a lot to do with that. How you grew up has a lot to do with that as well. It wouldn't be my type of lifestyle. Is it okay for them? Sure. If you want to, if that's who you are and you feel completely content with no regret, that's what gets me motivated sometimes, right? I don't want to regret missing something.
Right? Oh, well, I say that because I witness people say, "Oh, I'm content with my life now," and I see them die 3 months later.
Yeah.
So I always think it's contentment to me is visually is a death when somebody says that, because that means you're done growing. You've decided to stop growing, and you're just gonna plop it down right here, and that's the end of it.
Well, it's interesting that you've had that observation.
Yeah.
Um, and so there's definite proof for you that that's not the way you want to be. I just saw a Facebook post, and it was a woman. She was like 120 something. She's sitting there in this evening gown, and she's sitting in a chair with wings. She's got a cigarette in her hand, and she's I don't know if I know the secret to life, but I just enjoy a good glass of bourbon and a cigarette, and I am addicted to sweets. And she's skinny, right? She's a skinny person, and it's just like, you go, girl, right?
Good for her.
I
I
love it.
I knew a lady that was at her late 90s, and she smoked and drank heavy like a fish, didn't weigh but 85 pounds at best. And she went out every night to dinner, and I'd go pick her up because I used to work for a company where we picked up disabled people
Okay.
or couldn't drive anymore or something like that. And I'd go pick her up, and she'd come out of the restaurant just three sheets in the wind, and I'd have to carry her to the car basically and get her out, and take her up to her apartment and stuff like that. But she did that. I mean, and she was in her late 90s, still cigarettes, drinking, the whole 9 yards. So it's interesting to see. I again, but she didn't let, like, I mean, I know she outlived her son, but she didn't let life, little disappointments stop her from living her life the way that she wanted to. And it kind of goes back to what you were saying earlier, our mind, or maybe I watched it in a video, your mind plays a really big part in how you perceive things and how you're going to live your life
Right.
and what you're going to do.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And to have good role models like that, how grateful are you to have seen her in your life and experienced her, to know that there's an opportunity. And I think sometimes that's what it is too with contentment. They don't know there's other things out there available for them.
Yeah, that's true. I never want to be content with my life. I want to I want to play. Like you said earlier, I look at life as a playpen and I decide which playpen I want to play in today.
Right.
You
Right.
know, and if I choose to play in the playpen of stress, then so be it. I'm responsible for playing in that playpen, or I can play in the playpen where I don't care anymore and things are going to roll, they're going to do what they're going to do. But I know that I'm responsible for how I feel. Like you said, it's a feeling.
Right.
It's a
Really.
feeling.
There's two things you can control in life, just two. And we try to control so many of them, but there's only two, and it's your thoughts and your feelings. That's it. Those are the only two things you control in life. We want to control everybody else's feelings, we want to control everybody else's thoughts, but those are the only two, and those are the two that you're responsible for. So, like you said, pick the playpen you want to be in, and it's okay either one. That's the thing that I had to get through for a long time too. Is the well, I shouldn't be feeling this way. And then I get all wrapped up in the shouldn't be feeling this way stuff and what's wrong with you and you should know better. You're a licensed minister, for crying out loud. Why are you so angry? And blah, blah. And then I would go, well, then I realize, well, these are your thoughts and feelings. Yes, I know they're my thoughts and feelings. I want to keep them. Okay, that's fine. You can keep them for a little while. That's all right. When you're ready, let me know. I'll jump back in. But it's okay to keep them sometimes. Sometimes I want to play in misery. Sometimes I want to be miserable. I just want to be stressed. I want to be, I want to feel that, whatever that is. And it's okay to feel that. It's okay to be in that place. It also gives me more grace to move out of it and say, okay, now I'm ready. I'm done.
Yes, yes. One of my things lately for myself is like before before the tiny house was started being built, I had a daily routine of doing nothing but positive things for myself, and that included meditation in the morning and my gratitude and everything. And while I got into this habit of doing, working plus doing a tiny house or doing all this stuff, I got out of that. And boy, I can witness the havoc that I had played a part in my life, not, continuing on with that little routine that you talked about that you did. I was curious about your routine that you do. But if you get out of your routine for several days, do you feel different?
Yeah, actually, I just noticed that, and I was okay with it. And we took a few days off, and we actually went bourbon tasting in Kentucky with my brother and sister-in-law. And it was just a 4-day weekend. It wasn't a long time. When I got back, though, it was difficult to get back into the routine. And and I'm sure there was several reasons why that was. Part of it is just momentum. So I had stopped my momentum of my routines, and to start rebuilding any momentum, it takes some time. And so by the end of the week, I was back into the pattern again. But and so you give yourself that grace of getting back into momentum. So if you do drop out of a routine that was working well for you, don't beat yourself up over it. Don't sabotage yourself. Know that it's going to take some time, and just start back at it in a slow process as you need to, or jump back in both feet.
Well, apparently this playpen I picked to play this thing called life. One of my thing is sabotage on a chart. Like that's one of my main focuses of this lifetime is sabotage. So I've got to overcome the self sabotage, the self judgment, the criticism. I guess we're our own worst enemy, right?
We are our own worst energies, and it was really very interesting in your words. Even you said, "I got to, I gotta," and "I gotta" is a very judging, shoulding word, and so let's change that to "I get to."
I get to.
Yay!
Yay, I get to do that. Isn't that exciting? So,
And doesn't that feel better?
yes, it does. Actually, that really does. When I say I get to instead of I got to, it sounds much better and like I have more control. And
Yeah.
when you say I got to do something, you have no control over it. It's like you're forced into it. So I guess verbiage is really important in all of this, no matter from weight loss to a career choice.
hmm It is the power of words. I mean, there's many TED Talks if you're interested in getting more research about the power of words. There's all kinds of books written about it, but yes, and the my biggest lesson from words came from Louise Hay. Louise Hay's first book, I think, the biggest book she ever wrote was, um, the heck is it? It's right over here. You Can Heal Your Life. And I have it on display. It's sitting right over here beside me at all times. But one of the things she talked about was the word should. And the word should is so judging, and it's so criticizing because you haven't done it yet. And, it's judging because you haven't done it yet. And you think you should do it, right? So there you go all over again. But then I also discovered there's a few other phrases or words. One of them is gotta, have to, need to, even want to sometimes is, so I want to go on a diet. It's kind of a wishy-washy word. Oh, maybe I will or maybe I won't. So so paying attention to how you're phrasing things will give you really great insight to where your limiting beliefs are and how they're, like you said, sabotaging the new habits that you want to create in your life.
All right. Well, I am going to watch the verbiage there because I do. You got to listen to yourself. Maybe I should record myself talking one day and listen to myself. I know I do it here on this on Saturday nights, but you're right. It's really important. What am I actually saying to myself on a daily basis?
Mhm.
So what's going to be happening for you in your future? What does your future look like for you?
So the vision I had, and it's interesting you say that because my husband and I were talking about this at lunch today. We're going over our visions for specific areas in our life. And it's great to have a generalized vision for your life, but I also like to break it down. Our relationships with others, our relationship in our careers and our business, and on and on and on. So the vision for myself is to continue to fall in love with my husband every day.
Aw.
Yeah. So we've been together for a long time. I want to keep it that way. To have a playful daily life experience, to allow myself to do that. I get very serious about things, so I have to remind myself to play and to laugh, and I love to laugh. So more laughter, more playfulness, and it doesn't mean not working. I will be 99 and a half years old and be working on something. That's just my personality, doing something. So the vision is but my vision is to be less doing and more manifesting. So by human design, I'm a manifesting generator. So I can do both. I can do the work and I can manifest. So more manifesting and less generating, but yet doing the generating that is in business. It's required until I can hire someone else to do it. I have an amazing team right now. So in getting more team in my business, speaking. I love to speak. I love to educate. I love to entertain. I love to give people those ahas and those breakthroughs. That's why the name of my business, Breakthrough, so they can decide to make a choice to change. So more speaking, more visibility to help people. Yeah, like I said, my focus is mostly weight loss, but to help people to realize that there is more for them and they can achieve it no matter if someone's told you you can't or you shouldn't or whatever reason, why you feel you might need to hide. And so that's what I see in my future, helping people financial abundance, prosperity in all levels, and just beauty around me and enjoying the beauty and gratitude.
That's beautiful. So you said you have a 1-day event coming up in June. What is that going to be?
It is, let me grab my calendar right now as I just started putting this all together. And the theme of the event is called Scales of Justice. It's on June 28th. It's virtual. It's from about 9 to 4:30 Eastern Time. It's $27 for a ticket.
Uh-huh.
We will, of course, have breaks. I'm not going to make you sit in front of your laptop for all that time. We'll have breaks. We'll go a little bit deeper into the core belief system so you can walk away knowing, and you might already have a good indication, but you'll know for sure which ones you play with.
Mm-hmm.
And some really fabulous exercises to and to see what you learn from them. And it will be a fun experience for all of us because this will be the first one I've ever done.
All right. Well, I'm definitely looking forward to that because I'm definitely going to sign up for that and do that one. Cause I'll be in my tiny house then, and I'm going to have some fun. I
I
choose to have fun. How about that? I choose to have some fun, and that's going to be really good. Because I think whenever we work on ourselves, I don't look at it as a chore. I look at it as like, oh, this is fun. I get to find out the truth because I'm a truth seeker.
right.
So when you said that my mind is making up 80% of my story, that it's a make believe, boy, that just blew my mind. Like, whoa, that is so crazy. So I'm looking forward to this event. If people are interested in getting to have a chat with you, how would they go about doing that?
Let me grab my calendar. So I look down at my keyboard here. And I can actually put a link in. Maybe I can spell it here. So you can sign up for a 30-minute chat with me. And it's really easy. You just click the link. It shows you times available. You pick one that works for you, and it's all set.
That's beautiful. I had a 30-minute chat with you, and I tell you what, it went by so quickly. I really enjoyed our conversation, and I learned a lot in that 30-minute time. And it just made me realize that, we do need that extra help in our life, and it's okay to ask for help. Because I came from you did everything yourself, and you didn't ask for help. But as I'm getting older, I'm learning it's okay to ask for help.
That's a big one. I actually private chatted you because I can't seem to add comments from here. So if you wouldn't mind copy and pasting it into comments, um,
Okay.
that's a big one for me. Actually, I had that discussion in my head this afternoon to myself. Um, where did that come from? That um, fear of asking for help. And I have a couple ideas where it may have come from, and it seems to be more prevalent in women, which is really very interesting. So does that mean it's a generational situation that we could change? That's another thing that's very fascinating is sometimes our sabotages are actually generational and we're fulfilling prophecies of past generations based on our experience of seeing them in these models or they actually came right out and told us this is the way it's supposed to be. And maybe it's our job to break that chain.
Ah, that makes sense. That makes sense. Uh, our other host that's not here tonight, she talks about breaking a chain within a family, a generational thing. So
Mhm.
years and many generations, there's been this underlying abuse that's been going on, a mental abuse, so to speak. And
Mhm.
so she's there to break the chain for the family to come from love and growth. So that's really interesting that you brought that up this evening. So,
Yeah, I absolutely agree that, and I see that even with food. So I see that with food. I see that with weight, women in weight. But yes, asking for what we need is very difficult for women, and I often cheer my clients on around that experience because it's scary, and people learn why that's scary in many different forms and ways, but it's scary for them, and when they do, it's so freeing to finally be okay and feel worthy and valuable enough to ask for what they need. Now, their expectation of what's received, right? The other person has a choice. They can say no, or they can say yes, or they can try. But we, as the person asking, has to decide, depending on their response, how we're going to react.
yes. Yes. Yeah, and not judge it, whatever the reaction is or anything like that. That was the hardest lesson for me to go through in my life, was to reach out and ask for help and not judge the reaction of the person that I was asking the help from.
Exactly. And
Yes.
it is. And thanks for sharing that because it is difficult. And I think sometimes too, we're afraid to ask, not because we don't feel valuable or worthy. There's part of that, but we're afraid of what the answer will be. And then what does that mean about us? So if you ask somebody to communicate differently to you and they don't, now what? Now how do you handle that situation? So it is very scary if you don't have a way to reinforce yourself.
I understand that. Yes. Yes, it is. I can remember the first time I reached out and asked somebody for some big help. I was crying because it was so hard and petrifying to ask when I was taught never to ask for help.
Right.
I was taught that it was an environmental learned behavior not to ask for help. And it's still difficult even though I've already gone through that first hoop. I still find it hard to ask for help to this
Mhm.
day, but I do ask for help. It's just it's slow process of coming up to asking for it. I'm very stubborn. I choose to be stubborn because it's a playpen I play in. So
Well, you know what's fun about that, and we talked about this earlier. The first step to any change is awareness. You have to be aware that that's an issue before you can change anything. So what's really fascinating is that you are aware, and then you can decide to make a choice whether you want to move further into understanding, which is the second step, or not. And like I talked about earlier, there's times when I'm in a foul mood, and I'm like, I'm just going to stay here, and I'm going to be in this foul mood, and when I'm ready, and I'm just going to be here, and then I deal with those consequences because there's always consequences for any decision, whether it's good or bad for us, and or indifferent. So I appreciate you sharing that. One, that it was hard, and that it's still hard because a lot of people could be judging themselves. Well, I asked once and it was hard and it worked out okay, but it's still hard for me. So thanks for sharing that. And like I said, I love that you're talking about playing in the self sabotage.
I choose to play there. So on June 28th, you'll be talking about those beliefs and that type of thing in your one
Yes.
day session.
Yes.
Beautiful. Beautiful.
Yeah.
Well, we are at the end of our show. I want
What?
to Yes, I know it flew by really quickly. We got about a minute left and it's over with, but I hope that you'll come back on. You know, you're always welcome to come and play in this playpen anytime.
Thank you.
You're just a beautiful soul, and I'm so thankful and so gracious that I even got to meet you. So it was such an honor, and thank you for giving me your time.
Oh, my pleasure for sure. And grateful to be on, like I said, and to have this conversation and to share with many that can, with our openness and honestness about the cracks in our egos, to let them know that they're okay. And everybody goes through stuff, and it's all right. And you're not broken. You don't need to be fixed, but you can change it so you feel better.
Awesome. Beautiful. Everybody, thank you guys so much for joining us for another edition of Raising Vibration Radio and Journey into Consciousness. And thank you, Vickie Griffith, for being on the show. And we're going to have links to her websites. When I get off of here, I'll be posting them on the Raising Vibration Facebook page and on the YouTube channel. So thanks, everybody, again. And Vickie, why don't you say goodnight to everybody?
Night, everyone. Thanks so much for joining us. Have a great evening.